identity from their heritage, whether we like it or not. Who are you? That's rooted in your heritage. That can be a cultural, a family. It can even be a grouping, whatever it is. And sometimes you have to think about what we consider to be our heritage. That's what I want to talk about this morning. What do you see your heritage as? Who do you see yourself as? Whose do you see yourself as? You know, when I was a little girl, I'm Irish. I just want to say that. I'm very proud of it. They do that because it took 52 years to get me to finally get the Irish government to say that I'm Irish, finally. But you know, part of my heritage that I'm proud of is Welsh. And the Welsh are very proud of their culture, very proud of their history. And when I was a little girl, my grandmother, who died at 94, used to sit me at her feet, and my brother and all my cousins, and tell us the stories of our heritage. She would talk about family members who died at 19 and 21 in the First World War. She'd say they died in this room, one in this room and one in the other room. She would talk about members of my family that served God overseas, smuggling Bibles with Brother Andrew. She would tell me of this great heritage, and I was always so proud of it. I always thought it was amazing. I just loved listening to these stories. But I have realized in my years of walking with the Lord, my heritage is much more than what I learned at my grandmother's feet. It's bigger and it's better and it's more. You can even hear how proud I am of it. And that's how it is for most of us in this room. We're proud of our heritage. We're proud of our ancestors. We're proud of where we come from. But this morning, I want to talk to you about surrendering our earthly heritage in order to embrace our heritage of grace. There has to be a surrender. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that this morning. But that's where freedom is found. I want to read to you this morning from Romans chapter 8, verse 15 to 17. Now, you all know this verse. And I'm going to read it in a couple of translations, if you'll bear with me. So you have not received a spirit that makes you fearful slaves. Instead, you have received God's Spirit when he adopted you as his own children. Now we call him Abba, Father. For his Spirit joins with our spirit to affirm that we are God's children, heritage. And since we are his children, we are his heirs, heritage. Together with Christ, we are heirs of God's glory. But if we are to share this glory, we must also share his suffering. I want to read it to you, if I can, from the Passion Translation. I know you won't have this, but just listen to this, how it defines these verses. And you did not receive the spirit of religious duty. You're not here because of a religion that leads you back into fear of never being good enough. Does that sound familiar? But you have received, listen to this, the spirit of full acceptance. Isn't that amazing? Enfolding you in the family of God. And you will never feel orphaned. For as he rises up within us, our spirit joins in saying the words of tender affection, beloved Father. For the Holy Spirit makes God's fatherhood real to us as he whispers into our innermost being, you are God's beloved child. And since we are his true children, we qualify to share all his treasures. For indeed, we are heirs of God himself. And since we are joined to Christ, we also inherit all that he is and all that he has. Isn't that lovely this morning? My goodness, we will experience being glorified with him, provided that we accept his sufferings as our own. We could all just go home having read that, couldn't we? There's a sermon in those couple of verses that you just need to go and digest. But I want to ask you a question. My first question to you this morning is, whose are you? To whom do you belong? Who do you belong to? This scripture tells us that if we have accepted Jesus, then we are his. And that changes everything, my friend. Everything. Everything is different. But so many of us cling to so many identities. We have grown up and been conditioned, like me at my grandmother's feet, which was not a bad conditioning, it was a good condition, but this is who you are. This is where you've come from. This is your heritage. This is your inheritance. But the Word of God is telling us this morning that we are adopted into His family. And when you read this word, this is your heritage. The Word says we are grafted in. We have been grafted in. I won't get into all of that this morning, but how when you're grafted in, you become one with something. You actually become a part of it. And we are a part of this family. We have the spirit of sonship. That's why he starts off saying, you have not received a spirit of fear. Now, we take that as a word against fear, and it is a word against fear, but I want you to be clear this morning. The reason he addresses this about fear is because religion is rooted in fear. We are not here because of a religion that makes us fearful. We are not here because we are afraid that we're never going to be good enough. We have received the spirit of sonship. What a humbling truth this morning. Amen? It's humbling this morning. We are his own children. The moment we receive Christ, we become his. Joint heirs with him. I want to jump ahead of something here. Sorry. Let me just do something here. I want to read this. Now, some of you are not going to like this. I want to address this at the very beginning. The word talks about the word Abba, Father. The room goes very quiet. Now, I know a lot of people say that means we can call God Daddy, and I'm not going to get into that, but what I want to share with you this morning is, really what it means. There's so much more to it than a familiar daddy context. So much truth in it. And when we're talking about this adoption, it's important we look at this because he says something within us cries out, Abba, Father. And we have to know what that means in order to understand our position in Christ. The Vine's dictionary says, the traditional teaching of the Jews, this is the first thing, slaves were forbidden to address the head of the family by this title. So Paul undoes or reinforces step 1 of these verses in this context. Abba, Father. Slaves weren't allowed to use that word. Slaves could not address the head of the family as Abba. Only the family could do that. And he says, within us we cry out, Abba, Father. It approximates to a personal name in contrast to Father, which when it's joined in the New Testament is probably due to the fact that Abba having practically become a proper name in its own right. But listen to this. Greek-speaking Jews added the Greek word pater, father, from the language they used. So Abba is the word, listen to this, framed by the lips of infants and betokens unreasoning trust. Okay? But Father expresses an intelligent apprehension. Okay, so it's slightly different. An intelligent apprehension of the relationship. The two together, this is lovely, express the intelligent love and confidence of the child. We have a love and a confidence in God. And that's what Paul is talking about here. We have a love and a confidence in God because of who we are, because of what he's done. Let's make no mistake about this. We fail miserably regularly. But this word is saying you are not a slave to that anymore. Because you are heirs. You have been called in. You have been adopted. You've been fully adopted. In other words, your heritage has changed. If I ask you this morning, we're going down to baptize people in the water this morning. That's because they have confessed a relationship with Jesus. You have been adopted by God. Adopted. You're sons and daughters of God. Are you with me? Are you with me this morning? Now, I want to share something that you all know I'm going to do because I do it every time I preach. I always talk about Rahab because she's one of my favorite characters of the word. Everybody know who Rahab is? And when we look at Rahab, for those of you that don't know, she was a prostitute. She was afar off. She was doomed. She was living in the walls of Jericho. So those walls were about to come down. She was finished. But you know something? She realized that there was something in the people of God that she wanted. And I won't go into the whole story, we don't have time for it, but she went after it. And they save her, and she becomes a part of the Jewish people. She becomes grafted in. She is adopted, if you like, by God. And her story is remarkable. because she goes from a prostitute living in a wall to the lineage of Jesus Christ. I mean, you can't have more polar opposites than that. But here's what I've been thinking of late, because you all know I love her, and I think a lot about her, and I barely preach without ever mentioning Rahab and Ruth. They're my favorite ladies. And Mary Magdalene, but that's another story. But what I've realized of late, when she was adopted into that Jewish heritage and family, she couldn't live like a prostitute from Jericho. Now, people might have said, there goes Rahab from Jericho. But Rahab couldn't have lived like that. She must have lived beyond her heritage, beyond her past. You see, our heritage is quite often, for most of us, our past. Our failures, our disappointments, things we got wrong. She had to move beyond that in order to embrace the fullness of what God had for her future. And that's where we fall short quite often. That's where we tend to get a little bit messy, because we cling to the first part of that. We are slaves to our past, but we're not. You are adopted. The past is gone. It's gone. And Rahab had to make a decision when she came out of those walls to leave them behind. She left everything, her people, her home, everything. And yet we cling to it. She moved out and she moved on. And quite often that's what we need to do. You see, we can move out, but we can say, I wonder, did Rahab sit there and go, do you see that bit of rubble there? That was my life, and it was amazing. And, sometimes we hanker after the past. Pat and I, sometimes we'll talk about the past a little bit. But I can tell you this, it doesn't take very long until we go like, oh, no, let's just leave that there. Let's just forget. Oh, okay, now we're going, no, we'll forget that bit. And it's true, but we still hold those little memories. And I've often said to the Lord, why don't you just erase memories? Why don't you just erase them? And the Lord always says to me, because it's your opportunity to move on and move out, Sian. It's your chance on a daily basis to move on and move out. But the enemy wants you to remember all of that stuff. He wanted Rahab to walk past those walls and go, this is who you are. But in order for Rahab to find her way to Matthew chapter 1 and be in the lineage of Christ, she had to move out and move on. She had to. I don't care what anybody tells us. She became his. She says to those spies, I've seen something in your God. I've heard of what he's done. We know what he's done, and there has to be more. And I want a part of it. But in order to receive the fullness of it, she didn't just want to save her life. See, she could have come out and said, well, I just want to be safe. I just don't want to die. But she had to move on. And that's where we come to knowing versus living. She could have gone in there and known God and gone, well, thank goodness for that. The walls are gone, the people are gone, the life is gone. Let me just live here on the edges. Let me just live here. Let me just live here in peace. But she wanted to live in the fullness of a future promise, of a future heritage, which is completely different. And most of us are walking in this heritage of the past when God is saying to us daily, I have more. Amen. I have more for you. Imagine somebody watching Rahab bringing her bags out from that wall and saying to the guy next to him, I believe she'll be in the lineage of our great Messiah. Can you imagine? They'd have been battered. They'd have been beaten up because they would have said, how dare you speak of the lineage of the Messiah? But in the heavenly places, God said to them, there is a woman who will be in the lineage of my son. And all of heaven rejoiced as a little prostitute came out with her bags, leaving everything. You see, it might have been easier in some ways for her to leave it behind because it was so ugly. Even good heritage can hold us back. Even a good history can hold us back. Even my history, sometimes when I think of some of the stories Gran told me, I'm like, oh gosh, how would I ever be like, John going off with Brother Andrew and risking everything, smuggling Bibles and, in the 60s. And I'm like, oh my goodness, that good heritage can hold me back. And all along, God is prophesying, like you said over Ezra today, speaking new life, speaking that they will do more. That we will do more than our heritage, more than our past. Even if it's a good past, we're going to do more. That this country will be better than it's ever been before. Why hanker for the past when God can do a new thing? God can expand our borders. God can move us forward. So choosing is one thing, but living and walking is another. And that's why we baptize today. Because you can choose Jesus and hope that you get into heaven and it's like, whew, Problem solved. But living and walking is what we're doing today. Living and walking is what we're doing today. It's letting go of the past. It's letting go. Sorry, I've just lost my place. I really don't like technology. I really don't. Hang on. Bear with me, I'm here. Okay, so grace. What is grace? It's undeserved favor. So it's favor you don't earn. You don't deserve it. You're not good enough for it. So don't ever think that you're good enough for it. Grace afforded Rahab the privilege of saving her life and coming into a new camp. Okay, let's get that. But she had to embrace the heritage. That's a whole nother thing. You see, when they brought her out, it says in the scripture that Joshua 6:23 says that when they brought her out, her and her family were placed on the outside of the camp. And rightly so. She was a prostitute. She was from Jericho, not one of us. So let's just leave her there. And Rahab could have stayed there. But Rahab looked at that camp and went, I'm getting in there. And I'm going to have, they had the most profound heritage, which even now, the Jewish people, the most profound heritage. And she was going to be a part of what they had with their God. She sat on the side of the camp, determined not to stay there. And I want to ask you this morning, are you sitting on the side of the camp? Are you on the edge of the camp? Are you like, well, I think I'm safe for eternity. I don't think I'm going to go to hell. I know Jesus, but I don't really want to be as extreme as you. I don't really want to go the whole way. Leave me on the edge of the camp. I'm alive. Who cares? And maybe some of her family did stay on the edge of the camp, but not Rahab. Not Rahab. That's why we're preaching about her today. Get real. We're preaching about a prostitute from Jericho that became part of the lineage of Jesus Christ because of the choices she made. Rahab is far from a prostitute. She is adopted. Do we live like Rahab as though we are his? She had to walk with authority in that place. She had to. Do you know how I know? There's a man named Salmon. I hate saying that name, but anyway. He was a prince of Israel. He supported Moses. So he's like the creme de la creme. Doesn't get any better than that. And the word tells us that Rahab becomes his wife. Now just think about this on a really practical level, right, for a second. A prince of Israel, friend of Moses, friend of the best. Do you think that he would marry somebody who's like, could I just creep in here and just be on the edge? I don't want to disturb anybody. I know who I am. I know I'm filthy. Don't touch me. Don't come near me. I know. I look off. I know where I've come from. You know what I've done. Oh my God. Would he marry her? I believe Rahab walked in saying, I have embraced your faith. I have embraced your God. I am grafted in. I am adopted. I am a new creation. And he falls in love with her. And their whole lives are transformed. How does that happen? I'll tell you how it happens. Because she embraced a new heritage. A new heritage. She let go of the old one. And she moved on. Remember, she didn't just leave a house. She left her people. People in this room, you can't leave your people. A lot of us can't leave our people. We cling to our cultural identity. All of us. I don't care who you are or where you come from. I grew up all over the place. Scotland, I was born. Lived in Ireland for 10 years as a child. Lived in Wales, lived in England. So I'm totally mixed up. I still cling to my cultural heritage, even though I don't realize it. You start talking about certain historical things, and I get very like, excuse me, can I just say something that you can feel it, like it rises up in you. And we cling to that. We don't realize it, but it's more important than anything. Because wherever you go in the world, they might not know you're a Christian. They might not know you have a degree in whatever. They might not know what your job is, but they'll know where you come from by your culture. Wherever we go, we talk to everybody and go, you're Irish, are you? Yeah, we're Irish. Talk to everybody. From the customs officer to whoever. We'll talk to anybody. Go, you're Irish. Yeah, totally. People know who you are because of that. But Rahab let go of all of that. She would have had friends. She would have even had people that maybe worked with her. She had a life that she allowed to crumble in that wall. She had a life that she let go of, that she let them crumble, let them take it away from her. My last point, because I know time is moving. The next generation. Now, I don't know if you want to hear this or not, but we have just dedicated Ezra. And I have learned one thing as a mother. Pat's right. They don't do what you say, they do what you do. You can tell them what's right, all you like, and they're not really listening. Are they parents in here? They're not really listening. They're watching. They are watching everything. So we have Rahab, who is adopted. I don't want to call her Rahab, but Rahab, the adopted daughter, is now in the kingdom. She's living with this prince. She's married to Salmon, walking in her inheritance of grace. And she has a son, just like we saw little Ezra this morning. And she holds him in her arms and she says, "You will be called Boaz." Now, we can read about Boaz in the book of Ruth, and he's another one of my favorites. If there's men that are my favorites, he would be up there at the top. He's a businessman. He's respected in his society. He does everything by the book. He's a kind man. He's a righteous man, the word tells us. He's a generous man. And he was not raised by a prostitute. There is no way when I meet that man in heaven, I'll go, "You look like a prostitute raised you." I'm going to say, "You look like a princess raised you, and raised you well." Had she walked in that old heritage, had she walked in that old identity, I can tell you the book of Ruth would not be the book of Ruth with the same Boaz we know. He'd be a totally different kettle of fish. How do I know? Because we see what happens when offspring of people who don't walk right in their heritage. Orpah and Ruth both handed the same opportunity, both handed the same heritage, both offered the same heritage through Naomi, walking with her, beginning the journey to that heritage. Orpah and Ruth walking with Naomi, with everything. Here it is. Here is your opportunity. One embraces it and becomes the wife of Boaz and the great-great-grandmother of King David. The other one sits on the outskirts a little bit. Edge of the camp stuff, not really sure this is for me. I'll go a little bit of the way, see how I feel. Not feeling it. Sorry, Naomi, Ruth. Love you, but I'm going to leave you. I'm going to cry because I love you, but I can't do this. The mother of Goliath. Her offspring was Goliath. Most Hebrew scholars believe she was the mother of Goliath and 3 other giants too that were enemies of Israel. Embracing our heritage is all about the next generation too. It's about what we're feeding in, and it doesn't matter where you've come from. Listen, I was raised in the church in the 70s. I know that's hard to believe. In the 70s and 80s. It was a different place to what it is now. But that's not my heritage. He is my heritage. And I will give to my children what I have of him now. Like Rahab. What I have of him now is who I am. The heritage I have right now. God changes everything. He changes everything. Who we are impacts the next generation hugely. You know what Pat said to Silas and Dina today? Absolutely. And I know Edith and Jerry were going to be dedicating beautiful Eden next week. It's the same thing. It feeds in. I used to say parenting is like Russian roulette. And I know it's tough. But we have to look at what is the inheritance we're giving them. How many of us in this room sweat, blood, tears for the property we're going to leave? Study hard because we want to leave a heritage of education for our children. We invest in all of these things. And you're right. Do we invest in this house in what God has done in your life? Because that's what Rahab did. Do we invest? How much time do you give 1% of your time and energy to what you give to the other 6, like what we were singing this morning, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. There are 7 days in the week, and most of us struggle to sit in under the word for half an hour. And yet we will invest for our kids. We We will work hard to get houses, won't we? We'll go, no, I have to leave something for these kids. Like, I'm gonna study because I want my kids to go to college. I have photos of the kids in their caps and gowns, and you're like, yeah, I did that. That's great. But have I invested and given to them the heritage of God, where I am adopted, because that's my real family. That's who I am. That's who I am. Our investment is in the kingdom, and we must demonstrate that is our treasure, our value, and our hope. That's my hope for my kids. I don't want to leave them a house. I mean, I probably will, but that's not the important. The funny thing is when you invest into what God has given you to pass on, all of that comes. Seek first the kingdom, and all things are added unto you. God transforms in our adoption. He changes our heritage, and through that, he gives that inheritance to the next generation. Rahab marries a man, and you know what his name means? I was reading this, it was just like blew my mind. I love the word, there's just always so much in it. Her name means pride and arrogance. Sounds about right, doesn't it? That's where she started. But his name means peaceable and perfect. And another one of the derivatives of his name means covering. Covering or mantle. In her adoption, she is given this beautiful covering, this peace and this comfort. And we see years later that inheritance through Boaz. What does Ruth say to him? Cover me with your cloak. His inheritance that Salmon and Rahab had invested into him, coming through into his marriage, into him redeeming this woman, releasing Ruth from all of her pain. Think about it for a minute. You can't disengage any of that story. You can't take any piece out of it. God has changed it all. And you know what? Through that, he has given Ruth a new inheritance. You're not slaves. And I'm going to be honest with you, it's not about calling God daddy. It's about an intelligent awareness of the incredible relationship we have through adoption with him. And we're going down to baptize people. This is more than sitting on the edge of the camp, lads. Rahab left a generous heritage of grace through the covering and adoption that she embraced in her new life. She took a new name. She took a new husband. She took a new God. And she took a new inheritance. But she let go of the old. That's hard. I'm not going to lie to you, it's a challenge. I can tell you all I like, even what we pass on to our kids, it's hard because when they rise up in that inheritance, it's challenging. You dedicate babies. Sometimes it scares the life out of me because I'm like, this is a huge thing we do. It's huge. We don't take it as seriously as we should sometimes. The baptism, it's a huge thing. It's important that we take it with the reverence and the intelligent understanding of the relationship we have with God. Intelligent understanding. In the last 2 months, the Lord took me back to the dedication of my youngest child. I fought with him over something. And I got into a bit of a row with him because I'm adopted, and that's okay. He's my father. I started to argue with him. And I said, I think you've gone a step too far, Lord. Because we still want to be in the middle. We still want to be the parent. But, they're God's, but he put me as the mother and him as the father. So we don't really need his input until we're desperate. See, we all want his input when things are bad. But do you want his input when things are good, guys? Do you want him to step in when life is good for the kids? That's really hard. You're always willing to take help when things are wrong. And the Lord spoke to me all night. It was a long night. I wept and I wept and I wept. And I wasn't angry. I just felt, I'm her mother. I'm her mother. And you can't overrule me here. And the Lord took me back to that day. I stood just like you guys this morning. With a full heart, not knowing where this road would lead. but knowing that I was embracing a new inheritance for her. And the Lord said to me, so why fight the inheritance, Sian? Why fight me on the inheritance? And I'm still making peace with it. I send Hannah to America in August at 16. But I know I'm sending her to go get her inheritance. Go get it. Go and get it. Go get it, Hannah. It's scary for all of us. It's scary for her. It's scary for us. It's scary for everybody. But it's time I put my money where my mouth is. What's more important, that she gets a house and a leaving cert, or that she follows God to the fullness? We can even put education before him. Or this, and you know what was what was bad? I was like, Lord, let her do her leaving cert. Let her do a couple of years. And the Lord was like, is that really where your value is? Is that really what you value? Is that really the inheritance that you're coveting for this child? Is that really it, Sian? Is that where it all stands and falls? And I was ashamed. I went, well, it's not really like that. You went, no, it is. It is. You're saying that this is more important than anything. Than me calling her, me answering her prayers, me putting things in her heart. And you're standing there going, I'm her mother. This is how we do it. And the Lord said, well, fine, do it your way then. And that's why, people of God, we end up in a mess. Because we say, thank you very much. God doesn't force it. God didn't force Rahab out of the wall. I can tell you one thing. It must have been terrifying packing her little bag in that wall. Watching people go about their business knowing they would all die and she was going to leave them all behind. But that woman had a vision. That woman had seen something that she wanted, not just for herself, but for her Boaz. Somewhere in her heart there was Boaz. And she was going to get that boy more. Who would he have been if she'd stayed in the wall? Who? He wouldn't be the kinsman redeemer. He wouldn't be the type of Jesus that comes and rescues us. She believed more for him, people. And I want to challenge you this morning, especially parents, but even in our own lives. You going through the waters of baptism, very easy to cry out to God when you're desperate. When you're lying on a floor. I've been there. Broken and nowhere to go. Very easy to surrender. I remember saying to the Lord, if you want this life, you can have it, because I don't want it. That was easy. What was hard was when it was good, and he said, no, you're not going down that road. And it looked like something I wanted, and he was like, let it go. I've got another inheritance for you. Let it go. That's hard. But that's what takes us from the edge of the camp to the center of the camp, to the lineage of grace. And that's your inheritance. Whether you like it or not this morning, that's what you have been called to according to Romans 8. Adopted. Abba Father has called you, adopted you, brought you in. But I'll tell you what it doesn't say. It's up to you. It's your choice. It's absolutely your choice. Sit on the outskirts or move to the center and live forever in the lineage of grace. Rahab is forever. Nobody is going to get that woman out of Matthew chapter 1. No matter how hard they try. And they would love to take her out. Trust me. They'd love to get her out. It's very awkward. But nobody's going to take her out because she embraced her new heritage. And you know what? Here's the best bit, and I'll close with this. She embraced a new heritage, a new inheritance, a new identity. She embraced it all. And the best bit, God came through. God came through. God did not disappoint. And if I could stand here and say, ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to meet a lady and her name is Rahab, and we're going to interview and ask her, Rahab, was it hard to leave? Yes, it was hard to leave. Rahab, yes, it was all very difficult. Yes, I felt like this. I felt like Rahab, would you change anything? Rahab, do you regret raising Boaz as the man of God, the righteous man of God that he was? Oh no, Sian, I don't regret that. Do you regret that he took Ruth? I don't regret that. How do you feel about your great-great-great-great-grandson, David, a man after God's own heart? And she'd say, I don't regret that. because that is, was, and always will be my heritage. Amen.